All right. Hello, everyone. Uh, First, I want to apologize for the quality, or in some cases, lack of quality that this video is going to be formatted in. This is my first go around of this, but I still think it's necessary to get the information out. And hopefully, by the next couple videos, maybe hopefully my production level and format will be a lot more cleaner and less choppy and more presentable. Nevertheless, I want to go ahead and make my point. As you can see from the title of this, uh, that NFL divisional lineup proposed change. And the point I see is going to be better for everyone. From the business side, the company side, it's probably going to be to generate more sales, uh, ticket sales, I should say, make the game more popular. For us, the consumer and the fan, I think it's going to create uh, more diversity. And I say that because the way I can envision and see the cultures uh, interacting with each other, fan interaction, making family road trips more popular. Used to be something big, in the late 70s and 80s. We all remember those wild shows of National Lampoon's Vacation, one of my favorite shows, watching Chevy Chase and his family drive clear across the country. Well, that was for Wally World, and going to amusement park. I believe something has been lost or has been overlooked, that same advantage can simply come from families on a Saturday or early Sunday morning, waking up and traveling together to their nearby neighboring rival team. So that is what this is all about. On the forefront, I do want to kind of give a quick view how I came up with this, how it is not going to be just for this NFL. I have no less than 4 dozen other great ideals and points that I think we all, as a society, as a culture, and from a business standpoint, could all prosper and benefit from. The first thing I want to talk about is evolution and revolution. I came to a certain awareness watching these last elections, from the presidential election to the Senate and representative elections, that the media and from stars to prior presidents to athletes, everyone speaking up and saying, "Hey, go vote, go vote, go vote." I think something has been missed here, and what has been missed is voting is a old structure uh, based on a old system of communication. So the fact that these politicians or these candidates would have to get out and vote, get out, spread their word, their message, whether through pamphlets, whether through before commercials, or these platforms that, when we were not in an internet age, or the technology was just not there yet advanced enough to allow us to communicate on a mass level, these other platforms were what worked. They were the only thing to work. Now, because of our technological advances and this internet, we have all evolved into a sense where voting does not work, people. Voting is an outdated formula, it's an outdated plan. And simply what happens a lot of times, and this is a saying that I came up with from other combined profound wisdoms. Uh, Voting is kind of like an old strategy, which goes with an old success plan, which is going to give you old results. And as we evolve, certain things tend to be revolutionized. And if you have not developed a new strategy with a new success plan, then you're not going to have new growth. And that new growth can mean financial growth and social diversity because they actually go one in hand with the other. A lot of times with these political views or political approaches, and when I say political, I'm not just meaning from Washington, D.C. to government suit and ties. You have political views and approaches in business structures where you have some ideals that have been that company's basis for so long that they feel that that's their monument to success. A lot of those CEOs or people have probably been in positions for 15 to 20 years, and they know, hey, this worked back in the 80s, or this worked in the 90s or the early 2000s. We had this profit margin. We was the best at that time, and it works. We just need to make certain our employees envisions that and get that to the consumer. That is the biggest mistake that a lot of companies make. And I once attended a manager seminar in the early 2000s. Not really saying any company name, but it was basically for a service type providing roadside service, and being in a manager role along those lines. My point is that companies can fall victim to lack of a paradigm shift. Their vision of doing something so long, and it historically, one of the things I took from the seminar, historically, one of the main companies that stood out to me that this happened to, I think it was the Swiss watch industry. Either somewhere in the early 60s, I think like 61 or 62, they either had this inventor or someone on their team, their young visionary, but he was obviously in one of the roles of production, that he presented to the Swiss watch bigwigs at that time this new mechanical device or this new option to their old format of where they did things, which really was the old sprocket and tick-tock kind of type of mechanism, more of an analog. He made his presentation. They pretty much said that'll never work. We're built on this and this handcrafted thing. This is what people want. This is what we've been known for. Okay, fine. Either a year or two later, he went to Japan. I believe it was Japan, and some either science fair event or some business presentation or whatever the platform was. He made his presentation. Japan bought it, and from that point on, that new invention became the leading industry in watches, and that ended up becoming to be known as the quartz battery or the quartz watch. And I think probably up until the era of this smartphone era and the smartphone watches, I believe the quartz watch was, the leader in watches at that time. They may even still be from the aspect of just watches and what needs to be done, from swimmers to people running and really still like the old-fashioned structure of that timepiece right there on their arm. Anyhow, nevertheless, that's my point, what I want to lead to as we get into this quick discussion and benefit that will come from the title here, which is the NFL divisions. As I've watched and been a fan of football for so long, the game has really grown from not just fantasy football to you have these other entities out there, the FanDuel. You have some leagues where women are now being able to participate in football, from refereeing to being players to even coaching. So with that, the NFL has really expanded. And so it had nothing to do with them trying to say anything had to do with Kaepernick, that the NFL took a hit on their ratings, or had anything to do with I don't even want to talk about teams and their issues, whether some had players for domestic violence, things that came up, some had players that got caught up in some uh, egregious or heavy charges as far as murder, to even some moral issues. Some teams being even accused of cheating. None of that. I mean, those are small things. They are very important, and for all those events that happen, I hope we all learn something from it. But in the biggest case, as far as where NFL is taking a hit, for me, it is more enjoyable to sit at home with my big screen, watch the game, than going to the game in a lot of cases. Reason being, the tickets are expensive. Reason being, the games that they make access are easily affordable for some of us to go to as a week game. They do it on the basketball side too. I mean, the premier games are tickets are some cases more. They're either sold out. My point is, the NFL has missed an opportunity here to see what has happened. You need to, I feel, restructure the divisions so therefore it becomes more of a pastime. For example, I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. Some people may not see the state of Indiana as very diverse, very culturally diverse, but the city of Indianapolis definitely is. We have IUPUI, we have Butler, we have Martin. All these universities are smaller university cores within the city. They bring in a lot of young diversity. With that, Cincinnati, the city of Cincinnati is about 90 minutes away. I mean, geographically, this is right up the street. Tennessee, the same thing, maybe add an hour travel time to it, just in the other direction of south. Now, I know some people are looking at this or probably have been looking at this already, seeing the restructure that I came up with. And I did this using an old ESPN 2K5 football game, which towards the end of my presentation here, I will give my opinion of where I thought something was lost when the Madden football franchise monopolized or cornered the market with their big, huge millions or $100 million investment to where they could be the only one make the game. I think something was lost there, but I give a lot of shout outs to 2K5 for this game. NFL 2K5 is one of my favorite football games of all time. There's still a lot of people on the internet still talk about or wondering when another one's coming out. There's their favorite football game of all time too. But what you can see here, they had a franchise mode that allowed you to restructure the divisions. I know even in the Madden games now, that's an option that's there. As you can see here, as I restructured the division, out of all the divisions, 3 divisions I changed, 3 divisions I left the same. And as you will see in review, you will see how it makes sense why and how the benefit would be just not only for the NFL, but also for the main recipients of the NFL, which is the consumer and the fan. A lot of times that's missed by the companies. They go straight to the media or the market margin of the player or that aspect of selling tickets, but they forget what the fans really want or what makes fans love the game or what becomes a national pastime. You can watch college games and see their stadiums always 50,000 plus fans. A lot of hype in the preparation or the leading up to it. I mean, the crowd is jumping, the bands is. It's like, wow, I mean, even though it's 50,000, sometimes you look at them games, it seems like 100 or 200,000 just with all the energy that's there. And then even though the NFL stadiums may seat the same amount of fans, or you may catch that at a good Packer rival game, or maybe even Patriots, Steelers, or Dallas Cowboys, these are your more historically franchised teams. And a lot of times the teams with the most recognition. So these stadiums may naturally feel that mark. But the other stadiums, the more smaller market teams, and when I say smaller market, I only say that in comparison of city size. For example, Tampa Bay and Indianapolis may have the same population or fan count in that sense, but they're very lacking compared to somebody like the Patriots or the Steelers or even a big team like New York Giants, just because there's simply more people there in those areas. So it become more marketable for networks and teams and everyone to lean towards those type of cities or those type of games to watch and view. This is the point. I know you look at this and you probably wonder, well, okay, I'm kind of gathering what you're saying with lining up the divisions geographically. Cincinnati is close to Indianapolis. Indianapolis is tight, and that stays the same. But what's going on with the Bills? The Bills is almost clear across the country in a sense from where Indiana is. But the Bills and the Browns, that may be the only thing that if anyone, even from a marketing standpoint, even from the NFL, if they wanted to maybe switch the Bills and the Browns around here just because that may make more sense geographically. But I went with this lineup because one thing a lot of people don't remember, the Colts and the Bills used to share this division up until the late 90s. I mean, that division then was the Colts, the Bills, Patriots, and even Dolphins. And if you even think about that then, what sense did it make for the Colts and the Dolphins to be in the same division? I mean, they're clear really half across the country from each other. The same way now with the Colts and the Texans, not based on my illustration here, but the Colts and Texans. How are they in the same division? I mean, the Houston Texans all the way down there in Houston, Indianapolis, that is just ridiculous as far as trying to create or call them division rivals. But as you look here, the AFC South makes sense. You have three teams there from Florida. I know a lot of people see now I've moved Tampa Bay from the NFC over to the AFC, but it makes more sense. And some may already be seeing what AFC team is missing to fulfill that gap. And I think you're going to like it when we look at the NFC East team here in a moment. But the AFC South makes more sense to have the Buccaneers, the Dolphins, Jaguars, and Texans. What better way for a family to spend their weekend? Tampa Bay, get in an RV, drive down to Miami, and go enjoy the game. Maybe leave on a Saturday night so they can be there, paint the town red Saturday evening, get up, go tailgating in the parking lot with the fans of the Dolphins. You may even create some nice little simply family rivals there, some family games. There may be flag football between, certain tailgaters of the Dolphins, certain tailgaters of the Buccaneers. It's just a great business aspect. I mean, even companies could start investing in RVs and just have RV drivers, because any family that gets in an RV, none of the family members are going to be wanting to drive the RV. They're wanting to sit back, relax, enjoy the countryside view and all that. So this is a great even marketing aspect for RVs. I remember going to church events in the 80s, and some of the church members, they would have an RV, and just being in there and taking that road trip and just the fun we had in the RV while that was part of the trip. The destination was just a bonus as we got to wherever we was at. Anyhow, makes sense too as well now with the AFC East here. The reason why I left the Browns in the AFC East, because traditionally there's a lot more traditional rival with Baltimore Ravens, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it just makes sense. I mean, calling them AFC East, because right there with the Patriots, I think that really balances that division out. Same way here with now the AFC West, and it's just so happened that the Raiders are now going to be in Nevada. That's a great rival travel game right there from people that live in Nevada to shoot over to Colorado. And even with the Colorado and the Chiefs, all a road trip probably within a day, or maybe, even making it a whole weekend. Some families, they want to leave out Friday night, go to the game, be there Saturday, then view the game Sunday, and then come home. All these divisions are pretty much still in close proximity where people can be back home for work on Monday and kids can be at school on Monday. Lastly, I know now we look at the Chargers, they're all the way in California, But I mean, excuse me, those one or two teams is really on the stretch of the division, like again, Indianapolis to Buffalo or San Diego to the Raiders, you are going to maybe have some advantages where those teams are just so far away they may have a true home court advantage. But then you have less of an advantage with teams like Indianapolis and the Colts are right next to each other. You may have some games there where it's just as many Bengals fans as it is Colts fans, and that I really believe makes the game funner to watch, makes it more enjoyable, makes the teams play better because we all play or perform better when we have someone cheering or rooting for us. That's just a psychological and physical human fact. As I go ahead and move over here to the NFC, I'm sorry, the AFC, I'm sorry, the NFC division. As you can see out the gate, the NFC North is left alone. I did not mess with any classic rivalry there. Everybody knows the Packers and the Bears. They pretty much go all the way back to the beginning of the football era. Nice geographic right there with Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings. All that is in close proximity. And I even liked, you're going to have trades in certain aspects where you may even have college players being drafted from a certain region and staying within that same, demographic, if you will. I mean, some way with the J.J. Watt's brother, I think he was at Wisconsin and then going over to Pittsburgh. That's not, it's a distance, but it's not too far a distance. Everybody probably would have loved it if he was somehow stayed in Green Bay or could have been right there in that whole NFC North region, because then you're going to have the commitment of some fans that follow their football players to the NFL. And then I thought it was good. Some people don't agree, but I thought it was good when Brett Favre left the Packers and went and joined the rival of the Vikings and created that whole bad guy image or that revenge image. But that would still even make Viking fans, I'm sorry, not Viking, but Packers fans, even maybe take the road trip to Minnesota. Is right down the street. So that division was already perfectly aligned anyhow. The next one I want to move to, which I left aligned because these are easier to point out and discuss compared to the ones that are changed. The NFC West here left it the same way. That's already perfect. You have the 49ers there. Now the Los Angeles Rams, they're back in their original hometown. And then you have Cardinals and Seahawks. That also comes to point out that something was lost here when you do not have these divisions synced up right, because you had the St. Louis Rams in St. Louis. I mean, they had one of the greatest teams of all time. I mean, the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, the great receiver that Holt, I think, Holt. You had all these great players that were there, but as soon as the players were gone, then the city is almost like they lost interest. But they lost interest because technically, how could you call them what kind of division rival could you have with the St. Louis Rams to all their other teams that were truly West Coast? Now, with them being geographically around their counterpart rivals, you're going to have those people travel from game to game more. So something was lost there with the city of St. Louis. I hope city of St. Louis gets that NFL team back. They're a large enough market area. They're one of the biggest cities, trademark of Skyview of the United States. I mean, the gateway to the West, those big arches there. I mean, so you have to get St. Louis back, some kind of NFL team. Anyhow, now let's go look at the NFC South. This is one of the proudest things, I think, that, in me toying with this or experimenting with this, that I think is going to be pointed out. There is nothing about the Dallas Cowboys being in the NFC East that makes any sense. I know people like the illustration of a rivalry between the Cowboys and the Indians. You have the Redskins and you had the Cowboys, and that turned into some kind of traditional Thanksgiving game to sit back and watch the Cowboys play the Redskins. But geographically, it makes no sense. There is nothing that is NFC East about Dallas Cowboys. Makes more perfect sense that they're the NFC South or part of it. Because now you would have Dallas fans being able to travel right over to New Orleans for 2 divisional games a year and vice versa. So now this gives these fans in these close proximity 4 games a year where they can travel to each other's stadium and really, raise the bar as far as performance, really root for their team. So that's perfect for the Dallas and the Saints to be close proximity of each other, to shoot over there for a weekend from a Friday to a Sunday and go enjoy the game. Same way with Atlanta and Carolina Panthers. Again, they're geographically down the street from each other. So some of these teams were already in these divisions anyhow, but it just makes more sense from a marketing standpoint and everyone being able to, enjoy the game. Lastly, the other one that I'm proud of as well is the change of the NFC East. The NFC East, New York, everybody knows, one of the biggest cities in the world, biggest population count. What better rival to have and start creating from the New York Giants to the New York Jets? That will be a sold out game every event. You got 4 games a year, basically. I'm sorry, no, you have 2 games a year, basically, of that. The city, for whatever reason, they can divide up why they're Giants fans or why they're Jets fans. I'm certain you're going to have people more or less from Manhattan being Giants fan, feeling why that part of New York better represents New York. You're going to have people from the more rural or outskirts area of New York Jets that's like feel they're the real blue collar or hardworking backbone that makes New York work. And that's the beauty of it all. Also, to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. in close proximity, they can all drive to each other's games. All that is probably not even just in driving range, but there's probably some train or some bullet train that they could take from one city to the next. You could probably be there, leave out that morning and be there by game time at 1 o'clock. So anyhow, I hope everyone sees and likes this ideal. The way to make this work, if you could please, as you have watched this, of course, viewing it is already a plus. That counts. Like it, subscribe, and share it. My name, the subscription name, pretty much is going to end up being F4 of the Birds Ideals. F4, if anyone plays chess or knows chess, F4 is an unusual first move opening for the white side of the chess pieces. White moves first and then black always moves to counterattack. So these new ideals are a new approach to now a society that has evolved in its way of communication, can now revolutionize that communication by the masses first telling the companies what we want, not let them tell us what to pay. It's never been before where the consumer or the low man on the totem pole or the masses has never been in a position before, even for companies. This is a benefit to companies. Never been in a position before where the companies can see what the masses want before they make the product. We now have a platform to where we can tell the companies, the country, everyone what we want or need, and then they're going to have to conform to that. This is what's going to change the whole political industry, the political view. It's not the going to vote or using the same platform or system there that has become outdated. Kind of like we all have cell phones now, even though the house phone is very useful. It's not as necessary, it's not even as reliable, the best communication now as it once was. There was a time that in the 80s and early 90s that, you needed an answering machine to catch that message. And that became a good way or a main way of some people communicating. You can still use that if you want. It's not the best way. You may be a day or two late by the time that message gets heard or gets delivered. As opposed to now, you have these more immediate points of contact, text messaging, emails, so forth. So it's the same thing here. My other videos are going to go ahead and to include great things about the way we pay bills, to the way we buy clothes, the way we eat, the way we even spend for our gas, even the way in buying things and subscribing to things that some of us use or switch up commonly from maybe some people may be more into hats and buy a lot of hats. Some people, women, may be into switching out purses quite often. A lot of people are into shoes. Some people even with the repairs on their cars and just trying to factor in a budget for that. So please like and subscribe, because as hopefully some marketing manager or some company that may come across this can see the revolution aspect of this and really say, okay, yeah, there is something here. If so, any of y'all along those lines, a marketing manager or a director or someone with a company that really feels they can enhance my platform and delivery, please shoot me an email at the letter F, the number 4, the bird at gmail.com. So F4 the bird at gmail.com. And we'd be happy to coordinate across some ideas and really get things out there. Lastly, I want to say before I go, thank everyone for watching this video. Last thing I do want to mention and talk about is what I mentioned earlier. This system that I'm using that allows me to show these different lineup of divisions was the old NFL or old ESPN 2K5 NFL football. A great football series. 2K, in my opinion, is is the better video game maker when it comes to individualizing the character in the game. Their basketball series, everyone puts hands down. Their visual aspects, the attributes, the players are so lifelike. Each player is individually different from every other player on that team. No two players are alike. And there was something that Madden, when they went from being their big guru, because I've been with Madden, or I was with Madden from the beginning, when it went from Tecmo Bowl, that two-dimensional side-to-side screen. When Madden came out in the early 90s, 1990 or 1991, when it was just called John Madden in a little green cardboard box. It wasn't Madden 1, 2, it wasn't Madden 91, 92, it was just John Madden football. That thing revolutionized the game. I mean, you had it up and down view from an aspect of a third-person